Dark Monster in the graveyard, the full maximized number of 10 that are legal in the TCG, because going into the weekend, that was one of the biggest meta calls. Are you going to play 3? Are you going to bump it up to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Now, how far are you willing to go? Well, Mario's made it all the way here to the final round of the Swiss with all of the Bystials possible in his deck.
Well, Mario's going first here, so we'll see how rolling that 11 on the dice ended up setting it up for a successful duel. Oh, it might be Dimension Shifter. Yep, because we talked about it. You don't really put a lot of monsters in the graveyard with Exodia Millennium.
I mean, that is a Dark Monster, so there is a possibility that that allows him to activate a Bystial effect, but that might not be really sufficient based on the way his deck is constructed. You know, for example, post Dimension Shifter, he has, in terms of defense, 3 copies of Ash Blossom. He can still use that. 3 Veiler, which he cannot use. Then he has 3 copies of Fualos, which isn't going to line up particularly well against this strategy. Then he has 3 copies of Nibiru, which also probably won't line up very well. Ghost Ogre. I don't see a whole lot of defense here that he might have.
Well, that's an interesting point you make about Effect Veiler not being effective in this duel, because a lot of the effects of the Millennium monsters activate from the spell and trap zone, so it's not necessarily when they're always summoned. So the Effect Veiler may not have been helpful, but oh, normal summoning the Ghost Ogre. I wonder what we're going to do now. Link Summon or Synchro 9? Feels like it's probably a Link Summon here. Oh, an SP Little Knight.
That's sort of interaction. I mean, it is. It's just not typically the interaction that you hope for. And now he'll get to resolve his Magnamut in the end phase, presumably searching out... Now, I could see him searching out a copy of the Bystial Lubellion, because monsters are not going to go to the graveyard anyway, and then Bystial Lubellion is any of them. So here he's gone for Serenair, which might suggest that he has the Bystial Lubellion in his hand. You know, if you just hedge and get the Bystial Lubellion, you kind of have access to all of the Bystial options on the following turn. Though I will say there is the possibility of a second Dimension Shifter. You know, whenever we have the Bystial Dimension Shifter interaction, it actually opens up the double Shifter opening.
You have to wonder if these two players have dueled before, because Ivan discarding that Dimension Shifter meant he wasn't afraid of Malice. He just knew, okay, I'm not going to worry about any cards getting banished here, but we draw for turn. Our first card is the Wedju Temple.
And he needs to give that card a read, so Steven, tell us what this card's going to do.
Sure. So you can go ahead and use it to place a monster from your deck into your spell and trap zone. But first, you have to place a card from your hand into the spell and trap zone. That doesn't sound too painful, but sometimes under the wrong conditions, you might end up using an Exodia piece from your hand. But that's okay. This deck actually wants to put those Exodia pieces on the field because it can show them later. It looks like he's going to put Sengenjin that wakes from a Millennium in the spell and trap zone to pay the cost, to go ahead and then place another Millennium monster, and I would imagine it would either be the shield or the golem that guards the Millennium Treasure. So we'll see what he has and where he's going with this.
So he already has access to another Millennium Search at the cost of either 2,000 life points or revealing the Millennium Ink from his hand.
Well, the Ankh certainly spells eternal life here, and you don't have to pay any life points when you actually have the Ankh in your hand. But we'll see if he has to pay 2,000. It looks like he probably does, because he put down the Millennium Shield. Again, the Shield of Millennium Dynasty is going to... Oh, no, okay. Oh, he is going to Order of Operations out. So here's why that's important. He would have to pay 2,000 life points if he didn't have the Ankh, but there's the Millennium Ankh right there. Oh, it's gorgeous. I think this is all Quarter Century Secret Rares on every single one of his cards. What a true passionate duelist.
I have one in deck in English.
I think this may be a foreign copy, so they're just getting a translation.
Oh, but he does need to have a copy of those translations on hand. You can't just keep them in your deck. So very important to either have Yu-Gi-Oh! Neuron on airplane mode or to have a written or printed copy of it. So Judge is probably helping out with that, but you do need to have that in advance. But
yeah,
beyond,
we see just all of these Quarter Century Secret Rares. He's not only brought this deck to the event this weekend, he's fully committed to blinging it out.
Oh, he is definitely representing. So he didn't have to pay 2,000 life points, so he does get to special summon the Shield of Millennium Dynasty, and that will allow him to add from his deck to his hand another copy of the Millennium Ankh there. And I think that's also Quarter Century Secret Rare, so you're absolutely right. Definitely blinging out. So you're right that he also had a search that you commented on earlier. The Sengenjin that wakes from the Millennium will be able to add another monster. And, you know, usually you go, there's a couple of Millennium monsters, but Golem that guards the Millennium Treasure feels best because it prevents your opponent from negating the activation of the Millennium Ankh. Going for attack mode there, too. Interesting, we haven't seen anything with SP Little Knight yet. I can't imagine you would want to bounce anything other than the unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, especially the direction we're going.
At this point, though, he's just threatening an attack over. So he is kind of incentivized to eventually do something.
So we are going to use the Golem the Guards. And it's just going to get another Wedju Temple. This is great follow-up because if for some reason it goes to another turn after one of the amazing attacks from the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, he basically has the full combo again, every single piece of it. He has the Ankh, he has additional monsters, and he's got the Wedju Temple. And that's another quarter-century secret rare. You weren't kidding, Joe.
It's too bad the Golem that guards the Millennium Treasures isn't currently a quarter-century secret rare. Looks a little out of place.
It does. He'll just have to win enough times for it to be printed in one of those fabulous official tournament store packs. And then you could have an ultimate rare release. That'd be fun.
Okay.
Now
Maybe someday it'll be in a rarity collection.
Oh,
you know?
that
maybe
would
the
be fun,
30th
yeah.
anniversary by that point.
Now, there's a real question. What rarity are his Exodia pieces? So he's activating the Millennium Ankh, and to translate for those, he gets to show all 5 pieces from his deck field or banishment or graveyard, I believe. But it actually goes back to the deck. Don't worry, there's no victory by Exodia yet. This allows him to fusion summon out the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, and then he actually places the Ankh back in the deck. That wasn't a mistake he made. So that's why Dimension Shifter pairs so well. Look, the graveyard is clean.
He can literally activate Dimension Shifter again after a full array of plays.
So this is wild. We got to talk about all 5 effects of this card, right? So first, it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, which is wild in and of itself. Second, it has a built-in negation for spell and traps. Then, when it battles, this is insane, during damage calculation, which is a really important part because that could actually deal with the SP Little Knight, it gains attack equal to your life points. And then during the end phase, you get to set either an Exod or Obliterate spell or trap from your deck. And we'll talk more about those, but that was enough for him to scoop it up right there. Get out. I don't know if you met him before, but it's really good to see that this deck certainly continues to carry stuff on. I mean, it's just great stuff.
Yep, I know. Mother, of course.
It's just cool to see again that like this deck is doing business, and it looks like that Dimension Shifter is that right? Did he let his opponent go first, or did the Dimension Shifter lock him down? I don't think he played a single card, so
looking at Mario's deck, I don't see a whole lot of reasons why you'd want to go second, especially after what happened there.
Wow.
So could it have just simply been Shifter pass? That went so quick, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, it certainly is. I guess I got so effervescent. My apologies, duelists. Just excited about it. But it's true, again, we've seen so many notable duelists from legendary competitors like Patrick Hoban that you mentioned. I mean, they're really taking the Exodia deck seriously. And here we go again. Here's all 5 pieces in, I believe, quarter-century secret rare from the tins.
The Millennium cards themselves specifically as extenders. I mean, the Exodia pieces were not incorporated in those Snake Eye strategies, but if somebody didn't respect those cards before this particular event, seeing what they're doing now, it's really quite impressive. That one card almost reminds me of Branded Fusion to a certain extent.
It really, Branded Fusion, I think, is a really good version of that. The difference is that the Branded Lost here is almost built into the archetype and a little easier to search. If you get your Golem that guards the Millennium Treasures out in the field, they can't negate the activation of the Millennium Ankh. And that does sound similar to cards where you can't respond to it. But, oh, and there it is, right? The Exod, the Fires of Rage, the ability to destroy all cards on your opponent's field. That may be it. And that, to me, shows that I think that Mario let his opponent go first. Maybe he's got something. Maybe he thought he would just draw the Joel and Lockbird and just make his opponent suffer for that. But
we'll see very quickly, because either a concession could happen quickly, definitely a possibility. But if Mario starts to utilize cards that allow him to use his graveyard, then we know that it was the Ivan Shifter on Mario's first turn that had the stymied first turn, and this is now the first opportunity for Mario to actually play, and this entire match, might I add, with a graveyard.
All right, well, let's see. Gonna go and start with Kashtira Fenrir. Certainly can target the Exodia monsters, and we already talked about how Mario doesn't have a lot of spell and traps to make Exodia use its effect to its maximum potential here.
So this is either a card that he drew as the 6th card, or would give off the impression to me that he did in fact go second, because the fact that Fenrir can just search a copy of Fenrir makes it so that summoning Fenrir on the first turn is just the logical play. And
Definitely allows you to
additionally,
succeed.
it didn't seem like Exodia, the unstoppable Exodia incarnate, attacked that previous turn. So it actually does seem like Mario decided to go second, which I find to be really fascinating.
It is fascinating. Now, it's true we talked about the 5 effects of the unstoppable Exodia incarnate, but we left out that 5th one. During your standby phase, you lose 1,000 life points. And that can really come up. I've actually lost a duel myself because I had 1,000 life points exactly and just entered the standby phase, and that was game. So we'll see what happens. But it looks like he had to use the Exile the Fires of Rage trap card early to get rid of Kashtira Fenrir because it is a really natural predator of Exodia.
And everything's been banished. So it is, in fact, the case that Mario decided to go second.
Wow. So we are going to see another Kashtira Fenrir here. Again, take a look. Remember, cannot be destroyed by battle, but nobody said anything, or excuse me, card effects, but nobody said anything about being banished face down or targeted. So Kashtira Fenrir really can't help here. We're going to normal summon Lacrima of the Crimson Tears.
What's really awesome, in my opinion, is Mario has basically taken the 3 grindiest card advantage engine-based strategies from the last 2 or 3 years and just put them all together. The Bestials, the Fiend Smiths, and then 3 copies of Kashtira Fenrir in his side deck.
Oh yeah, excited as I've sounded about Ivan's deck, it is no disappointment to see Mario's list. It just is incredible stuff. And it's interesting too because we haven't seen a lot of pure Fiend Smith Bestial, right? Usually it has some other element added in there, whether it's Ryzel or something else, but he's really just trying to play light and dark monsters to the best of his ability, and I think he's doing a great job as he gets into the Fiend Smith Requiem without access to the graveyard.
It reminds me of the Tempai deck from yesterday, just about the Tempai, the one that we featured that had Bestials and the Fiend Smith cards. Looked like he was deciding between a handful of differing Link monsters, but it looks like Requiem is the one that he's selected.
Interesting. It's true that we're in such an interesting era of Yu-Gi-Oh! Too, because with so many popular cards and a limited 40-60 cards for your deck, we're just seeing people just play good cards. Whether it's like a combination of Malice or Ryzel or Fiend Smith or Bestial or Kashtira, it's just whatever you like to play, have fun with it.
So he might be deciding here whether or not he actually wants to set during the end phase in order to play around that Fenrir.
Yeah, but it looks like he's going to go ahead and do it. I mean, technically speaking, he could just fusion summon another The Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. And setting the spell card there, the Obliterate Blaze, could set him up for a really winning position. But he also could just maybe attack the Fiend Smith's Requiem, but of course that's a quick effect, so it's not going to stay on the field long.
And he has multiple copies of Lacrima. That's something that is a little bit different. Usually we see just a single copy of Lacrima, but by playing 3 copies of Lacrima, the fact that it got banished through the effect of Dimension Shifter isn't as detrimental to Mario's strategy as it might otherwise be.
I really definitely like Mario's, he's playing the Fiend Smith deck, right? There are lots of decks that include Fiend Smith, but he's really giving it his all to actually play that as a full strategy. But we are setting the Obliterate Blaze as a reminder, pay half your life points, destroy all spells and traps in the field, and then equip those 5 Exodia pieces as 2,000 attack. That's like 10 Axes of Despair.
And there goes Exodia to the banished pile face down. Maybe it is stoppable by Fenrir.
The sometimes stoppable Exodia Incarnates.
By the Kashtira monsters.
By the Kashtira monsters. Well, we know Kashtira gets a lot of work done. That's why it has a certain reputation among duelists. All right, well, okay, so we're going to place it in the spell and trap zone there. Yes. And unless he's got the Millennium Ankh, he's going to have to pay 2,000 life points to special summon it out. Oh, but there's the Ankh.
So this means he's going to be able to just do the entire thing we saw in the previous turn again, just about.
That's absolutely correct. And it is a spell and trap effect right now, special summoning it, so it's not a monster effect, so it's not time for Kashtira Fenrir to try to do anything. I mean, you could. We noticed that he had Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. You actually could chain that. Because it's a spell and trap that's already face up on the field, activating its effect. Maybe considering, I don't know how much mileage you would get out of that because he already has the Millennium Ankh. But you might be worried about what does 2 level 5 monsters on the field mean? Maybe he's running an Xyz monster. Maybe he's going to Link Summon.
And that is one of the inherent advantages of playing a strategy like this. You might kind of understand what these newer cards do, But the extra deck just has so many possibilities. You now all of a sudden need to consider every single rank 5 that's ever been printed, in addition to all of the Link 2 monsters. So it's difficult to understand how to interact with these strategies if you're not as familiar with them.
Well, I mean, we got to see Mimigol was making it. It's cool to see that a lot of duelists are putting the research and development into more obscure decks. It gives them, kind of like in certain video games where you play a character that nobody has any like practice against. It's that same vibe, and it's a reminder that duelists got to get out there and make new friends and play against different decks.
So now we're going to see that Lacrima, the second copy of Lacrima, as I mentioned, send a copy of Fiend Smith in Paradise to the graveyard.
Now, this may help him out. It'd be nice to see this duel go the distance. I mean, I'm just having a great time seeing these two go against one another. But with the Fiend Smith in Paradise, definitely gives a few more options later, but technically the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate could negate the activation of a spell or trap card or effect. Is that right? Yeah, spell or trap card or effect, so you could stop the Fiend Smith in Paradise.
And Desiree sends too, so theoretically that could get around the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnates cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effect clause.
If the Fiend Smith in Paradise gets to resolve.
That's what
it's
I mean.
all about order of operations.
Yeah.
This is like each duelist needs to blink first, and whoever does may not go their way.
And Mario would have to bait out the Exodia negation in a deck that has literally 5 spell or trap cards.
Yeah, it's a little difficult. Looks like we're going to send these two monsters to the graveyard in order to link summon. Oh, wow. Interesting.
Is he going to actually then go into the Underworld Goddess? Because he does in fact have it in his extra deck.
Oh, and he's pointing to the sacred spots. I mean, nothing is really safe except like the far left spot where Cashier Fenrir is, depending on where you're looking.
So this makes sense. Now he's going to activate that Fiend Smith in Paradise. Maybe he knows that this is something he has to use before the Unstoppable Exodia hits the field. It would make a lot of sense.
That's true. He did concede before Exodia even hit the field, so he may be just thinking to himself, like, no, I've seen this before. This may be exciting for the casters, but this is just another Tuesday for me.
But in terms of banishing the Fiend Smith in Paradise before the negation is on the field.
Interesting. Considering his options there, Fiend Smith Desiree being sent to the graveyard, ready to rock and roll, but Ivan been keeping up a great pace of play, but seems a little stumped, but just going to go ahead and flip over the Millennium Ankh. We'll see those Exodia pieces again.
Makes sense to keep copies in his hand so that he doesn't have to pay 2,000 life points.
This Exodia looks a little different. It goes arm, arm, leg, head, leg. But just the same, great materials, and back to the deck. They'll want to shuffle that deck thoroughly, that's for sure. I mean, mathematically, there is a chance that if Ivan played enough duels, he could just win by drawing Exodia in the first turn.
I guess that is a possibility.
You see it, but there's probably it's a very slim chance.
I mean, I've seen it in the feature match area before.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's true. Jeff Leonard, a legendary Exodia player unto himself. One more piece, right? One more piece.
This is one where I don't think he actually wants to draw any pieces, though.
Yeah, it's difficult.
No more pieces.
When you draw them, you're just like, I'll put him in the spell trap. No more piece. But joking aside, looks like he's staring down his own copy of Obliterate Blaze, and he may be doing it. Pay half your life points. So 4,000 life points remaining, but it's going to gain 10,000 attack effectively by equipping all those Exodia pieces. Even the judge taking a look just to be like, okay, let me make sure how this works, because it's true we don't see it at this level of play all the time.
And now he's going to be able to inflict piercing damage.
Oh, so the Lacrima isn't safe. And again, the monster effect activates in the damage step, so there's really not going to be a chance for any response there from the Cashier Fenrir. It's really all up to Lacrima.
And it was really important for him to clear out his spell and trap card zone throughout the duration of this turn as well.
Well, actually, it does that for you,
yeah,
which is so cool. Because you pay half the life points to give it the effect to do that, so you have the clear spell and trap zone. It's really weird, but that's Exodia for you.
It's actually really interesting you say that, because before the match we were talking about Blaze, and I said, oh, it kind of reminds you of Harvey's Feather. So you're like, no, it's actually Heavy Storm.
Yeah.
Not to think that actually would, it really actually very much matters.
Really Heavy Storm, it actually matters, because you don't want to have 8,000, you want to have 10,000.
We have an effect failure.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, you want to slow down on that. So it looks like he's not going for the attack because, remember, it gives an effect. So the effect veiler is stopping the spell. Really, like, nuanced use cases here. And And so maybe those clumpy effect failures are actually backfiring now on Ivan, because while Mario had to hold on to them, since there's so many monsters activating from the spell and trap zone, he had a definite copy in his hand to stop the unstoppable Exodia Incarnate whenever Obliterate Blaze gave it that new effect. So let's see what we got next. Mario is digging deep into the deck, grabbing another Cashier of Fenrir, so just Fenrir to Fenrir to Fenrir. Gang's all here.
And we already saw how one copy of Fenrir can deal with the Exodia.
That's all it takes. And it kind of gives you, you know, Fenrir is known for that insulation. I can play safely because if you react to me, maybe your best card goes away. And his best card on the field right now is Exodia.
So now we're seeing some of the standard Fiend Smith plays.
Interesting. So interesting too, I was noticing the life point counter hadn't changed, but the paying half of your life points is part of the effect that is given to Exodia, so he never got to. Maybe he should have waited just a little bit, because technically that would have been a cost, so Mario might have jumped the gun there because he missed a chance to have his opponent lose half his life points for nothing. But it is such a nuanced deck, but I don't think he needs any help here as Lacrima of the Crimson Tears hits the field. Infinite Impermanence obviously powerful here, so we've got negations going back and forth. Both players just trying to hold on for dear life, but again, both in a pretty good position to make it to our top cut here. So this may just be the appetizer for the encore. Ooh.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because it's a quick play, couldn't you have just activated it in the battle phase to play around Effect Veiler?
No, because the effect that it gives you is an ignition effect that you can only activate during the main phase.
Oh,
so
okay, touche, thank you, yeah.
They do a really good job of
yeah.
like making it not too unfair, but feeling just like, you know, Yu-Gi-Moto in the very first episode. You know, my grandfather's deck has no pathetic cards, but it does contain. Yeah. But unfortunately, it also contains Effect Veiler on the other side, so didn't happen this time.
Yeah, so for those of you who are curious about that, Effect Veiler actually does line up quite well against this Exodia strategy when they're trying to go for the Blaze play specifically.
Well, I hate to invoke the anime again, but it is going to mean that a player like Ivan is going to have more difficulty in the future as more Effect Veilers show up when the Blue Eye Structure deck comes out soon. Effect Veiler is going to be very popular very soon, but equally popular. Look at all the great work that Chaos Angel is doing, combining the Lacrima and Fiend Smith there. So the Fiend Smith Engraver, obviously light and light, so you're only getting the light effect on the Chaos Angel.
And one by one, we're down to just one final copy of Exodia. He is in fact playing 3 copies of the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate in his extra deck, but now he's down to only 1 copy, with Fenrir and Chaos Angel having banished them.
So big numbers here, of course.
This could be it.
Oh, he's conceding, okay.
Bye, man.
Are we going to have Shifter for a 3rd game in a row?
Shifter this time. To it,
So no Shifter, but starting off with the Wedju Temple. Looks like he's got some great options in his hand to place with the effect of the Wedju Temple.
That's not like it's an activated. Yes, it's not like on red side. It's not on red side.
I think that means he has a copy of Ogre, because he asked, is that like Right Soth, where it's on activation, or is it an ignition?
It is not. So this could be a little expensive, but you could still place the cards from your hand to the field.
Okay.
But you are right. It's not like Pressure Planet Right Soft where you activate it when this card is activated. No, it's after it's activated, then during your main phase. So it looks like there's Sengenjin. And I think we're going to lose a lot of life points. 15 minutes left on the clock. It's going to be a little difficult here. But yeah, he does lose 2,000, so that'll put him at 6,000. And that is important, not just for like the time rules, but also because this is reducing the potential attack ceiling of the Exodia. Because remember, it's gaining attack during the damage step permanently equal to your life points.
Actually looks like he has pieces in his hand this game, which is something that he benefited from in the first 2 games, at least in terms of avoiding. So, and he might have 2 pieces of Exodia in his hand, honestly.
Imagine that, an Exodia deck where you don't want to draw the pieces, but oh, there's... Ooh. That would work. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring negating the entire effect. That means that monster's never jumping out of the spell and trap zone.
All right, so he doesn't have 2 pieces. He has 1 piece of Exodia. Unfortunately, it looks like the Obliterate Blaze, which is a card you'd much rather search out of your deck. And then I think the 3rd card he has in his hand is Golem that guards the Millennium Treasures.
I think almost the simplicity of this deck may backfire on Ivan, because even if Mario didn't have experience against the deck already, although I certainly believe he does when he conceded in game 1, the deck is kind of linear. It does everything it needs to do in about 4 or 5 moves, so you can learn it pretty easily, and then look at the difference it has made. Ash Blossom stopping the Sengenjin, Ghost Ogre stopping the Wedju Temple. This is a pretty rough spot when you got an Exodia piece to boot, so there's very limited cards in hand technically.
Yeah, I mean, he can search out another copy of Wedju Temple with the Golem that guards the Millennium Treasures. That seems to be, in my opinion, the only sequence that he has left for this particular turn.
Sure.
Now it is interesting, but he still can only use that effect of Wedju Temple once per turn, so even another Wedju Temple here wouldn't help, unfortunately.
Getting it in his hand and putting a monster on the field to defend his life points is about the only thing that I could see.
Effect to place.
That might be where we're going with this.
K2K to special and search.
Oh, he's paying 2,000.
Temple. So minus 2K, right? So, yes.
So now he's just got a body.
And 2,000 less life points.
I know he's down to half. Certainly anime vibes with 4,000 life points and a giant soldier of stone-like monster defending his life points. Just that and a prayer. But pretty big defense there. Again, 2,200 and 6 stars, certainly relevant if you're using it as just an extender for certain different combo decks. But right now it really is just defending, not extending.
I think this might just be it. I mean, I guess he could put the Exodia piece on the field and link summon.
Oh,
All right.
he is going to do that. Okay.
All right. Is that the left leg?
I think so, yeah. Oh, but the secret
Oh.
village of the spellcasters. Little does he know his opponent has very few spells.
I know, literally 4 of them. And that's after side decking. The max that he could ever get to is 4. A regain and 3 track.
Well, all of a sudden, Mario's the one with the anime lines.
Oh, no.
My deck contains no pathetic spells, but it does contain Kashira Fenrir.
Fenrir banishes the left leg face down.
That is a problem, because again, Millennium Monk needs to show those cards, and you can't show cards that are face down.
Just the only spellcaster, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
I mean,
Oh,
every
no.
Exodia duelist has dealt with a piece being banished, but banished face
No,
down?
it's a Beast Warrior.
Beast Warrior?
I know. Banish face down is a lot different. You know, from the graveyard, we can back up soldier them back to the hand. People knew that from 25 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
From the banish pile, there's a few different iterations. You know, Burial can get him into the graveyard. Miracle Dig, I think, was once a card that was used. But this,
What's your answer, Necroface?
I guess.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't think he's going to normal summon Necroface next turn if he has a next turn, considering that he's got so few life points. And then that Bestial Magnum could grab another piece even if he did link summon it off. But it looks like instead we're going to go ahead and banish the Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit to get out Bestial Magnet, activate its effect, and I assume Lubellion's coming next.
Makes a lot of sense. He has regained in his deck.
Active effect to place.
Yep.
I can place, right? In your secret village?
Place.
Yes, you can place. It's not activated.
Yeah, this doesn't activate. It just simply places it onto the field. Which is actually funny. He has 4 spells in his deck, one of which doesn't even activate. At least typically.
Yeah, it's so wild that placing it on the field, just circumventing the entire secret village of spellcasters. Who cares if I'm in a village? We are going to regain some Brandon.
It might be more detrimental to Ivan in this matchup to have the Secret Village. It
Yeah.
shuts off his deck that has 16 spells in it, so he always needs a spellcaster on the field to do anything.
Yeah, and actually, checking the effect of the Golem that guards the Millennium Treasure, the activation of Millennium Monk can't be negated, so technically you can't, but you couldn't activate a spell, so it's not negating the spell. So he may be locked out of his signature strategy, not just from the piece being banished, but also just from lacking spellcasters.
He's going to have to, I don't know, draw a piece to Exodia, so maybe he does want one more piece.
Not like this. Well, for 12 rounds, it was never to happen,
Does he have
but
any
finally it has.
Just my anks can be negated. That's it.
That's it? Okay.
I was like, oh, that's all it does?
That's
All right,
it.
That's it.
Okay.
I like that. I'm going to attack that and banish your Exodia piece face down. Oh, interesting.
Oh.
Maybe this is just going to go for game because he's at 4,000 life points with all the 2,000s that he paid.
That's enough. Oh, and he's got it. Mario with his Fiend Smith Bestial Concoction conquers Ivan.